We will start with the biggest feature we have in 2.4, and that's the new editor. So the new editor is independent, and you can see that if Dominic clicks on the GPU out, there are new views here, source and sequence, which means that in the shoot room, you can have your main 4 views doing live or playback or whatever they have been doing. And when you switch to edit room, you have 2 new independent views, but they can also be sent to output. And they can also be a part of the multi-view, for example. Sometimes your director wants to see both the source view and the sequence view because it's important for editing if he's not sitting next to you. So this is possible as well. Okay, so independent views. Next thing, as Dominic is showing us now, we can see that create new sequence has a resolution and the color space. And whatever you put into the sequence will be scaled in sense of spatial resolution, and also it will be tone mapped and to the target color space. And this is a big thing because sometimes you have HDR and SDR and you need to mix them somehow, and instead of just flagging them with a different color space, we are actually tone mapping one color space to the other, right? Of course, this is automatic mapping, tone mapping, so it doesn't provide incredible results, but it really makes a nice conversion, which can be further tweaked by color tools that we offer. And also, one thing to note is that the sequence has always a master frame rate. But it doesn't mean that you cannot mix frame rates. You can put 24 and 25 and 30 on the same timeline. Of course, it will not look very good because in the 24 frame timeline, 30 frame clip will do some frame skipping and so on, right? So the rule of thumb, of course, is to have all the clips with the same frequency, but this new timeline will allow you, in case there's no other way, you can mix resolutions and you can mix frame rates. We have here a short sequence of 4 clips. We can show you, of course, the regular editing is load something in the source view, put the in and out points and insert it into track, but we can also do inserting directly from the browser. Dominic will select 1, 2, 4, 3 in this case because one shot was mislabeled. And when he sends this to sequence, we can use new sequence, for example, and name it, and that's it. Basically, you have the clips on the timeline. If your in and out points were roughly correct, you can already see, and this is super fast way to check the continuity with the director, but it of course goes beyond that. When you double click clip, or there is also this old segmented button where you switch between edit and trim, that also works. And we have now industry standard 4 trimming modes: ripple, roll, slip, and slide. Whoever was editing before, they know about this, but we can do a quick run through. So the ripple mode, where dragging the handles will change the duration of the active clip and will move all the following clips to accommodate for this change. The next one is the roll trim mode, and this one is only shifting the cut point. Then there is a slip trimming mode, which is not moving the cut points and only slipping the content. And you can see that because now in this slip and slide modes, we can see 4 views because we want to see the in and out point of the active view, and we also want to see neighboring frames. And the last one is the slide trimming mode, which will not affect the content of the active clip, but it will slide over the timeline and make the previous clip shorter and the next clip longer. Of course, there are numerous ways to do this. There are buttons, dedicated buttons for trimming, where you can do really frame precise, frame by frame shifting, or you can go 10 by 10 frames, or you can even dial in the exact frame number. More interactive way to do it is to really just drag it with your finger or your mouse, either on the timeline or inside the view. There is new tracks toolbar. First icon is the hide. It's used to disable the video part of the track. The second one is the mute button, which disables the audio part of this track. And then we have a solo button, which disables all the other tracks and makes only the active track enabled, and the lock button, which will prevent changes to your track, right? So if you have everything done, trimmed, you can lock it away and then just move the stuff in other layers, other tracks. These tracks are also composited against each other. And if we move the opacity of the track number 2, you can see that there's a track number 1 behind it. You can also use the blend modes. These are all the standard Photoshop style blending modes. So for example, screen would be used in case you just want to composite snow or rain, or multiply mode, which is compositing the dark parts of the image and the bright parts are transparent, and so on. Okay, and then we have audio type, where you can change the gain of the audio track in case there is any audio. So far, you have been familiar with the input, media, and clip effects. But now we have new segment effects, track effects, and sequence effects. Segment effects are applied only to selected segment of the timeline. In this case, we can try it with chroma key because we have a, and that's it. So this is a segment effect, so it's only applied to this segment. Now for the track effects, we can select the track number 1, and we can make this layer smaller to fit into the laptop screen. You can scrub through the timeline, and you can see that all these clips that were edited in track 1 have this DVA effect applied, because the DVA effect was done in the track effects, right? So in the track category. And then we also have a sequence effects. If you have an effect that you want to apply to whole sequence, regardless of the layer or the segment, we can do the vignette, for example. And this vignette will be applied to whole sequence, right? Whatever you do, wherever you do in the timeline, it will have this effect applied. Let's show what has changed in the edit toolbar. We have new fade effects over there. So we can try to apply it on the first shot. Put the number of frames, let's say 10. And you can see there is a little indicator on the track. And when we play this back, we will see the fade in. So here we have 3 clips. One is the some sea shot. The second one is some lavender field, and the third layer is this black and white title, right? So now the matte track is something you can select to key the track you want over at the background, right? So in this case, we can say, okay, the lavender field will be inside the white part of the title. This is done by selecting the matte track as a matte track, right? And in this case, we would go for Luma matte mode because it's a black and white image. You would be able to use for example, some image with the alpha channel, and in that case you would choose the alpha mode. Simply by switching to Luma invert, we will swap these two layers. So now if you use the view control and you move this title, you will see that the images actually don't move, just this cutout is moving, right? So it's interesting for this type of work where you have a mat that it doesn't have to be a still image, it can be a video mat, right? That's following something, and you can use it to key one layer against the other. And also we can now show you another powerful new feature, which is animation. So some of the effects are already have already this animation support, and DV of course is one of them. So now on the first frame, Dominic can make a keyframe. This yellow plus button means that auto keyframing is activated. So now whatever you do, these parameters of the effect will be stored on that particular place in time. So at the beginning we can do one position, at the end of the clip we can do another keyframe. And now if you play it back, we should already see the animation. Another effect that has the animation is the wipe. It's a new effect in the matte mode. So wipe, so far wipe was only available in the composite room. Now you can use wipe anywhere, basically as a clip effect or media effect or any of the sequence segment track effects. We can control the smoothness of the vibe, we can control the angle and the amount. So Dominic can show us how this works when animated. The point is that all this happens in real time, everything is processed without rendering, but in case you do want, you can render it out and use it in the shoot room or in the composite, or just export it either by using render button in the top, or there's a dedicated render button in the second page of the sequence. And now probably the most exciting part of the new editor is the live compositing, right? So everything you saw so far could be done, of course, in any editing software, but this feature, being able to do the live compositing directly in QTAKE, is something that would be really hard to do in some external tool. So we have this little scene prepared here. We have a green screen, Dominic has a camera there, and Peter will be puppeteer. We can show you a small simulation of how quickly you can do multipass shot in QTAKE using this live compositing feature, right? Because it's not only live compositing, it will actually allow us to record and directly into the timeline, right? So we have now a background layer, which is some wall static image, and we will simply insert, here we have live view on the left, we will insert the live view into the track. So we see it's an orange track, and it now if you go, Peter can show us that it's really live. The puppet is alive. And now Dominic has applied chroma key effect on that live track, right? So watch what happens now. We start recording and action. Okay, cut. What happened now is that whatever we record in the live track is automatically spliced into the timeline, inserted into the timeline on the new layer. So now Dominic can immediately play it back, and if we are happy with this first layer, we can go to second layer, right? So we can park the playhead at the start of the track, of the sequence, and now play it back and record the second pass. Action. Cut. And the second layer is there, right? So now let's do the third layer. Action. And cut. And now play back. So in a couple of seconds, we have created multipass compositing with 3 layers that are now independently shiftable, scalable, whatever, right? We can now say, okay, we want to postpone the action of the third actor, right? So we can just take the third layer, double click it, and move it a couple of frames, slide it, yeah, and go back to edit, and immediately we see the result. If we play back, we can immediately see the change, right? So this, if you wanted to do this in the old version of QTAKE, you would have to do 2 layers, render it out, then do the second layer, third layer, right? And then when you want to move any of these layers, you would have to go back and do another render and so on, right? So this is now multiple layers, independent and quickly composited over each other. Currently, the live track is only above the rest of the tracks, right? But of course, once it's recorded, you can move it around any way you like. Dominic can show this. This is super easy. Yeah, you can see that this big guy is in front of the smaller guy. But now you can simply click the arrow and bam, it's behind, right? So this reordering is super quick, and that you don't need to do any, copy pasting or whatever. Currently, edit, room, source, and sequence view, they require GPU out. In the future, we want to make it also available on the video out, right? It's a bit problematic with video out because usually if you have 4 inputs, you also have 4 outputs, right? So you don't have 3 spare outputs to use them for the edit views, right? Editor views. That's why we started with GPU out, because GPU out is more flexible. You can have multiple with the Thunderface. You can have 8 different outputs, even in HDX4, even in 4-camera QTAKE, you have 8 outputs. So you can have dedicated output for the edit views. And yes, markers are available in the timeline. So you can use chapters. You can use also in and out point, but only one in and out point, because it doesn't make much sense to use multiple in and out points on the sequence itself, right? So you can do the range, of course, and playback only that active range. But there are also markers like chapter markers that you can use on the timeline in case you want to have some specific points in time to align your action or shots to that, right? So it will show the little circle on the ruler. Masaki is asking about the match frame button. If you click the clip, any clip on the timeline, there is a match button which will load. Maybe you should select actual frame where we see something beyond the green background. Yes, and now this frame we want to load into source viewer, so we can use the match. Yes.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
In the future, we want to have a long click, the match button, and that will also give you the exact range in the source viewer, so that the range would match whatever was used on the timeline. One important thing, I don't know if you have noticed, but a long time ago we have implemented another set or multiple sets of ranges, right? So you remember there was always a problem if you have your ranges on your clip and now you want to use that clip in the edit room, you usually want to make a different range, right? So here you can see these are regular QTAKE ranges. It's called original, right? Original ranges are the ones that you make usually during the recording, right? And these ranges, if you don't want to break them, right, you can just click add new range. And now you have a copy of that range, which you can modify freely, in and out. And we would insert that somewhere in the timeline, right? Okay. But now, if you go back to source clip and click the original ranges, you see it's intact. This is useful tool when you want to do something, maybe some preview, whatever, modify your ranges, but not break your original ranges, okay? And of course, this is also used for your collaborators. If there is a VFX supervisor or a script supervisor or anyone else who is on the server, on the local network or over the cloud, they can create their own ranges and they also won't break your ranges. So you will have each name, you will see the group, different group for every person who creates their own ranges, right? For something, maybe they want to do some QC or whatever. So anybody on the collaborating on the project can do their own ranges and they will not interfere. Now, from this high-end feature, we will go to super beginner feature, and that's QTAKE Academy, sort of an interactive lesson. And the advantage of that lesson is that it happens directly on your QTAKE, right? So usually when you watch the video, it's somebody else's computer who has different video card, different setup, different layout, and so on, right? So with QTAKE Academy, the lesson actually happens in your environment, right? So we can show, for example, how to do auto recording.
How to record automatically.
Ta-da.
Click the double arrow icon to access other page of the record toolbar. Click the Auto Rec 1 button. Select STI flag item to enable recording triggered by the camera flag.
Okay, so this is really great tool for beginner, because even if you have things hidden, it will tell you how to find them, right? So now if we go, let's say to file room, and now start the same lesson.
How to record automatically. Enter the shoot room. Click the record menu button. Click the double arrow icon to access other page of the record toolbar. Click the Auto Rec 1 button. Select STI flag item to enable recording triggered by the camera flag.
Basically, wherever in QTAKE your toolbar or specific button is hidden, she will find it, right? And she will tell you what you should click to enable this or that feature, right? We can show another one. Let's say how to find the log files.
How to access log files. Click the status bar button. Click the Finder button to hide QTAKE and reveal the folder with logs.
Nice. Okay, let's move to next feature. When you want to give a little love to DOPs. Everyone knows false color, right? It's usually only showing you what parts of the image are underexposed, what parts of the image are overexposed, and maybe where the skin tones are. And this is what has been used in QTAKE as well in the scopes toolbar. But now we have this new false color effect, which lets you, which gives you much broader range of possibilities. So this new false color, Dominic, click the edit ranges. You will see that it works not just in IRE, which is usually what has been used on the false color. It can also use exact luminance values, right? So if your director of photography wants to see specific range of luminance values using some color mapping, you can do exactly, let's say, 720 to 800, right? And then you can add another range, right? And these range are basically unlimited, right? So you can really do the super fine control over this false color. You can actually edit those ranges and those colors. For example, Ed Luckman scale ends at 5 stops above the gray, right? But you know that Alexa 35 or even the older Alexas had much broader dynamic range, right? So we can say, okay, let's use another color that will be 2 stops beyond where the Ed Luckman scale ends, right? So we can do Ed Luckman until 7.5, so in the middle of the 7th stop. And then we can add a new range, and we can say, okay, this can be white color, for example. Yeah, so your DP can now see exactly what is 7 stops above the gray. A very strong exposure tool, right? That your DPs will love and love you for using it. Also, in the realm of DPs, cameras and lenses, a new feature in QTAKE is so-called STMap. STMap is basically an industry standard for lens correction, right? So, for example, this shot was shot with anamorphic wide lens. And this is how the original looked like, right? All the vertical lines are basically bended, right? If you scrub through, you can see this effect. And we have prepared STMap. So STMap is basically just an image. It's an EXR image with 2 layers or 2 channels, R and red and green. Red is used to store the X coordinates of the deformation, and the green layer or the green channel of this EXR file is used for vertical coordinates, right? So if you look at the image, it just looks like a gradient of from red to green, but when used in the STMap effect, it will do the correction, right? Apply on, off to see the difference. Of course, it's warping the whole image, so you need to reapply your mask, but that's the idea, right? It's especially useful for motion control shots where you mix it with CGI, right? Because you want really a rectilinear presentation. And while we are here, we also wanted to show you another new feature, which is called Conditional FX. We have been talking about media effects which are applied to selected media. Clip effects are applied to selected clip. Segment, track, sequence effects, they are all applied to specific clip. But sometimes it may be useful to apply a couple of effects onto the live clip and choose which one is actually activated using the metadata. Right? This is a smart bin where you say focal length of the lens is 12 millimeters, right? You can then create the smart bin for 14 millimeter lens, for 18 millimeter lens, whatever, right? We will have as many smart bins as many you have lenses. We are applying this whole group of effects only in case the focal length is 12 millimeters. If we change it to 14, you can see what happens. Bam, it's off. Go back to 12, it's on, right? Beautiful. This is all happening automatically when you have the SDI feed with the ancillary data, that will have the focal length encoded, right? So AC will just change the length, you will get the data over SDI, and your correction will be applied automatically. Next one is high frame rate support. Another thing that was motivated by Apple Vision Pro. So now with, I think only Blackmagic Decklink Pro 8K supports it so far, but I'm sure it will come to other video board vendors. But now you have a HFR switch in QTAKE. When you click it, you have all the frequencies above 60, 96, 100, 120, right? So with the Decklink only, with the Decklink 8K Pro. Next one is NDI 6. If you want to do HDR output over NDI from QTAKE, that's the only moment when you will need NDI license, right? So input works even with HDR. We can load a HDR clip, and from view 2 we can stream it over NDI to view 4, for example. Yeah, and this is how it would look without license, because it would just do the Rec 709, but with NDI license you would see the HDR streaming over NDI. Okay, the next one is the QuickTime Metadata. So now in the new QTAKE, in QTAKE 2.4, we have this ability to do both import and export of the embedded QuickTime container metadata. We have been building this for Coco recorder from Ovide. So Coco has this basic metadata, scene shot take rating. And when we export clips using this Coco template, we will actually embed these metadata values into QuickTime container. And you will see now, so this was an export, and Dominic will now import these exported clips back into QTAKE, and you will immediately see that the same metadata is there. So the metadata was preserved even without some XML or JSON sidecar file. The next one is a small update to doc. You remember there was a huge improvement a couple of versions ago. Now it's scrollable, so it's basically indefinite. Each doc is basically a bin, right? So you can load a different bin, and it will load your doc with the clips from that bin. That means that you can also access the same set of clips directly from the browser. And let's say HDR bin. Now in HDR bin you have 2 clips, and here they show also as 2 clips. Now if you add, by long clicking the slot in the doc, if you add another clip, it will show in the browser as well, right? So this is bidirectional. You can add clips to bin, or you can add them to doc, which has that bin loaded. But the actual feature that came with 2.4 is just a small feature where you can reorder those clips, right? So by dragging them, you can put them in a different place, and by dragging them further away, you can remove them. Okay, next feature is again something related to Ovide, and that's the control of the smart antenna directly from QTAKE. Here we have a smart antenna, and you can configure it, you can connect to it over the network, and you can configure Wi-Fi for 2.4 and 5 gigahertz, and even display the QR code so your clients can easily join without entering the password and the SSID. And there's also a modem part in the smart antenna. You can insert the SIM card and put the PIN code and use it for your uploads or streaming. Next one is also something that directors of photography will love, and that's putting the LUT name in the OSD. In the media effects, for this clip, we have some ARRI lookup table, and if we change it, it should change in the OSD as well. Okay, and we can add additional effect. We can have a technical LUT and then the show LUT, for example. So both of the LUTs, they will be aggregated in the same OSD line. Somewhat bigger feature is the script coverage. At this point, it allows you to load the script and to select part of the script and apply it as a coverage to clips. This is something I think directors will love, because you can also output the script as all the windows that have this number icon in the right corner. You can push the contents of the script view to the QTAKE view, and in turn that will be output to GPU out or video out or whatever, right? So instead of taking the paper script, you can simply show that interesting part of the script on the director's monitor. By the way, the selection in the script view is pretty smart. You don't need to do this precise selection like in the word processor. You click the sentence and it's selected. You click the dialog header and the whole dialog is selected. You click the scene header and the whole scene is selected, right? So when you're doing master shot, it's a single click and apply. And now if you go to clip metadata, you will see that this is actually a part of the standard QTAKE metadata. The text that is selected in the script is actually copied as a metadata value of the new coverage field in the script data. So now we can scroll to the other part of the script and do the selection for that specific clip, right? And that may not be the whole master shot of the whole scene. Maybe it's just a couple of lines, and apply this selection. We can go back to clip browser, and there is a new filter called script coverage. And if we now click in the script on this side, on the filter side, it will filter the clips that are covering that part. So super fast, super easy navigation in a huge project. You have immediately your shots listed and you can immediately play them back. Of course, it doesn't have to be you who's doing the actual coverage, right? If you have a script supervisor advanced enough to use the QTAKE monitor and have the script loaded in the QTAKE monitor, we will have the same feature available there in the near future. It is also pretty smart when you load a new revision of the script. It will migrate your selections. So whatever was shot before, it will not break, right? So you can have one version of the script. After a couple of weeks, you get a new version, but whatever was shot is migrated automatically to that new version. Let's move to the last one, and that's the immersive stream. If you want to do live streaming to Apple Vision Pro, you have to use 3D, so-called plus 3D view in QTAKE. First thing we'll do in media toolbar, we will tag it. This is the 3D left, this is 3D right, and both of them are fisheye. And now on each eye, we can also apply what is useful for direct streaming to Apple Vision Pro. Apply the fisheye to half equirectangular transformation. This is now done in the VR view effect. But instead of normal, you can modify from fisheye to equirectangular. We will do the same thing on the left eye. We can just copy paste the effect. And now when you open the 3D view toolbar and select the mode side by side, there. This is it. And you now have the valid stream for Apple Vision Pro. The only thing you need to do, go to streaming setup, and instead of regular view, you will stream the plus 3D view.